weekend is kicking, nephew. So what do you do when you run into what we ran into just a couple of hours ago? We had 2 power outages already, went off for a little while, and then came back on. A lot of you are in that same position right now, so what do? What are some of the backup options that you should consider? And even if you have those backup options, should you just turn everything on? Let's talk about it. All right, here's one of the options out there that's becoming really, really popular. And judging by what I can tell, good night, this thing is absolutely so simple that anybody can do it. I think a 10-year-old could literally put this thing together. And it's the EcoFlow. This one here is the Max. Embarrassingly, this thing has been sitting in a box for about 6 months because it's not my primary. It has advantages and it has disadvantages. One of the great advantages is it is mobile. You can pick it up, you can move it. One of the disadvantages is it's not going to run some of the most critical things that you need on a homestead. So unless you're a person that can get by with everything that's critical to your needs on 120 volts, yeah, this is exactly what you want. But if you have other critical things that need to be powered out there, let's say your well pump. I haven't seen too many well pumps out there. I know there are cases, but I haven't seen too many well pumps that don't run on 240 volt. They do have other models out there that will give you 240. This ain't it. Now the advantages, like I said, it's very mobile, very easy, and you can get this thing off and running. Once you get all the cords put together, push the button, gives you everything you need to know as far as status, battery life, the whole 9 yards. When I finally broke it out of the box, after 6 months, everything was already charged up at still 30%. So that's a testament to the kind of product that they must make. User interface is about as simple as it gets. Literally just plug these into the main hub here. This is a spare battery. This is also a spare battery. And it's as simple, depending on how you want to charge it. You can literally plug it into the wall and have it ready when you're ready to rock and roll. It can even be charged up, obviously, by a generator. They even have a solar generator that can do this. You can power it up on solar panels. We got some out there, and I'm going to install those here before too long. You can even do it with your vehicle. But once again, you see me in the house with this. I'm doing this because it's inclement weather outside. We don't store this in the house, okay? And I don't think you should any kind of generator, whether it's a battery powered or whether it's anything else. It also works as a UPS, and that's an uninterrupted power supply. That is pretty doggone handy depending on whether or not you have critical computer needs, or maybe you have a CPAP or something like that that requires, uninterrupted power supply. And this thing has incredible advantages, but there are disadvantages unless you go with the larger models. Let's talk about some other options. I'm going to speak up a little bit because I got the freeze dryer growing behind me. That thing's basically running day and night as often as I can run it for a whole bunch of reasons. Ain't that right, Milk Plant? He's all about preparedness too. All right, here's one of your other options out there. This is one of 2 that I have. This one has the option to be able to run on gasoline or LP gas. I love having that option. Also love the capacity. Here's the cool thing about it is you still got your basic 120 outlets. They're GFI protected or ground fault circuit interrupter protected. You got one that's a 30 amp, 240 volt. Remember I said that was critical when you're dealing with certain things in your house. If you have an electric dryer, I guarantee it's probably on 240. If you have a well pump, high probability it's on 240. Your oven on 240. And we're going to talk about those things in a minute. This one here goes plumb up to 50 amps, okay? And it can handle it. Like I said, in the preparedness space, 2 is 1, 1 is none. Well, in my case, 5 is 4, 4 is 3, you get the point. In my particular case, I got a panel over here, and I don't have a transfer switch. I don't have any of those things. And in fact, I don't feel like I need them. I know whether or not the power's on based on how I have it configured with the EMP shield that's already on that panel. So when I see the lights on the EMP shield on, I know that I have commercial power. When those lights are out, I know that I don't. So you can spend a bunch of money out there, go get yourself a transfer switch, or you could take a spare or put another breaker into your panel. We live in a very litigious society. I'm not going to go through all the how-tos and what-fors. I'm sure there's some intrepid YouTuber out there that's going to show you, but it can't be. I have this and another one like it that can essentially backfeed my panel. My main breaker goes off, and then I can backfeed everything through a breaker that's in the bottom of that panel. Even though you have a 50 amp capability on this thing, should you run it that way, when you find yourself in a critical spot when you don't have commercial power, You ought to be asking yourself very critical questions as to what I should be running and what I shouldn't. Let's talk about some of those items that I consider to be critical if I were in a long-term power outage. This is critical. You know why? Because there's a whole lot of meat in here that I raised on this farm, and here it is under butcher paper and plastic. Okay, that is critical. I want to run these things. Your washer is probably running on 120. Your dryer definitely, almost certainly on 240. Is this something critical you need to be running in a power outage? No, that's critical over there. But this is a water heater, 40 gallon. It ain't critical to me in a long-term power outage. Is coffee critical in your life? It's going to use up a fair amount of energy, but it's only going to run for a very short period of time as you're making a pot of coffee. So that's a judgment call as to whether or not you want to run it. If it were a long-term outage, no, I would use other means to make coffee or just not drink it. Are you going to call a microwave critical? Probably not. This stove, is it critical during a big-time power outage? Possibly. But I would not be running the oven because that's a massive power usage. Most stoves, like I said earlier, are running on about, or their high end is going to be about 50 amps. So I would avoid running this. In fact, I would favor, if I had any degree of sunlight, I would either eat freeze-dried food or at least take food out and put it in the sun oven outside. That way I'm not using any of the power I have. Now, in a lot of power outages, people are going to consider a TV critical. It ain't. But the good thing is that in comparison to everything else, it really doesn't use that much energy. Your Wi-Fi, that's another judgment call as well. The most critical item, at least in the dead of winter in this house, is what I got right over here, okay? Here's my buck stove, and it has an electric fan on it. I'll turn it on. That thing basically heats the entire house, without question. Now, are we going to get a little bit of heat induction out of here when it's off? Absolutely. But to me, this is critical. For very little expenditure of energy, I'm getting a whole lot out of here, especially if you have electric heat. Yes, we do have regular commercial electric heat here, but it doesn't have to be used because I have this. So remember, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. You ought to be thinking about those things that are critical to your needs. Freezers, heat, things like that. Wi-Fi, TV, absolutely not. All right, y'all. Until next time, this is Billy from Permapastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. We'll see y'all.